First of all, thank you all for joining us here. Over the next 25 or 30 minutes, I'm going to be talking you through the top 5 predictions that we have around AI, automation, and analytics. But before I jump into that, I guess I wanted to sort of make a broad statement about artificial intelligence. I believe that in our lifetime, artificial intelligence will be the most significant technology that will have the biggest impact on our life, right? I think to date, there's many people holding them up already, the smartphone, right? That's probably the technology we can all point to and say, this is a technology that's changed my life the most, right? But AI is creeping up on us in the same way that the smartphone did, right? It's funny that I don't think we all realize how dependent that we've got on the smartphone, and none of us really remember that time before the smartphone when you didn't have everything you wanted, in your pocket, basically. I remember for me when AI crept up on me and when I realized the impact, it was about, I think it was 2015. I was driving in the car with my kids, and my kids actually asked me, we were talking about the Queen and the Queen of England and hence Australia. And I don't know why we were talking about the Queen, but the kids asked me, Dad, how old's the Queen? Right? And this was the glorious period of my life before my kids got smartphones and they still interacted with me. And so they didn't have a smartphone to look it up on, right? And I was driving, so I couldn't go to Google. And I clicked the Siri button, I clicked the home button on the iPhone and said, Siri, how old's the Queen? And it gave me the answer. And I just had one of those mind-blown moments going, how amazing is that? That sitting here behind the wheel of the car, I've asked the phone a question and it's given me an answer. And you're going, that's really crept up on us. Like the massive amount of technology capability you need to deliver the age of the Queen to me while I'm driving is incredible, right? Yet it's all there and it's all available at our fingertips. And really looking at the different voice assistants, Siri's probably one of the dumbest out there, right? So the point is the other ones are better than that, and they've all made great advancements since 2015. So, I do honestly think we're going to look back in 5, 10, 15 years and go, wow, AI is really changing the world. In fact, I'd even argue, has anyone had the stage when you're working with a technology and it doesn't learn and you get annoyed, right? I've had that. I tend to keep up with technologies, but one area I'm a bit of a Luddite is the GPS, right? I use the TomTom GPSs, right? I'm not using the one on my phone. It's because every time I've tried the one on my phone, I get to a difficult intersection, a 5-way roundabout, and I get a phone call, and I don't know where to go. It happens consistently every time I do it, so I stick with my single-purpose GPS device. And I go drive into the city of Sydney once or twice a week, every week for the last 5 years, and I never go the way it tells me to go. It always says go this way, and I've never once gone that way. And every time I go, how have you not learnt? Right? How has this machine not learnt the fact that I'm always going this other way? So tell me the traffic on that route, not on the other route, right? It's one of those things where, as I said, I've got to the point where things don't learn, where machine learning isn't integrated, where I'm starting to go, why is that the case? And again, it's creeping up on you when Gmail types ahead and it writes the phrases that you typically use, right? There's intelligence in so many applications in Word and Excel and PowerPoint and the basic applications that we're using on a day-to-day basis. There's all these little things in there that you don't realize are learning from your behavior and making your life that little bit easier. So, before I jump into the predictions, I thought I'd do a bit of a set the scene of where we're at globally with the use of AI. So you can see, I'm in the way of this one, I'll move over here. You can see that, first of all, I'll explain, we include IoT sensor analytics in the AI technology space. That'll become obvious when I get to my last prediction of why we do that. But AI is as much about the data as it is about the learning, and the data generation is as much about the IoT sensors, and even more so in the future as it is about any other data sources. So IoT sensor analytics and machine learning are the most heavily used today, but you can still see the penetration's only around 10, 15%. right? RPA is up there too, robotic process automation. One of the comments I'll make about RPA, that this is the global numbers, in more mature economies like Australia, Singapore, the US, the UK, RPA is, in my 27 years as a technology analyst, the fastest growing technology I have ever seen. It has gone from 2 years ago, no one knew what RPA was, to in economies like ours, it's 30, 40% penetration. And every business is finding more and more use cases for robotic process automation within their business. But then you can see you move down to chatbots and facial recognition, and then down the bottom here, I know Steve mentioned deep learning and semantic computing, and I honestly believe that to do really good AI and smart AI, we'll need to get better at semantic computing. The penetration of these, yes, it's going to grow, and it's going to grow quickly, but off a really small base. We're still a long way away from mass market penetration from most of the AI technologies up there at the moment. In terms of the projects, it's interesting what Steve was saying, that this idea that you're trying to solve these incremental use cases. This is where AI is actually going. AI is moving away from the big moonshot style engagements that, like if you think of the big ones of 2, 3, 4 years ago, of health clinics trying to treat people with cancer more effectively and trying to read cancer on graphics, organisations going after the really big problems in their business and trying to solve them with AI, to actually moving to these smaller use case driven, looking at a pain point in an application or a process and using intelligence and learning to take that pain away. So if you look at it, we don't have any more of these projects that take 15, 20, 25% of our IT budgets. Most of them are 2 to 5% of our spending. And that's also being shown in the length of the project. We're getting value much faster out of AI because they're smaller projects, right? Because we're aiming for these smaller initiatives, just trying to drive little changes within our business. You can see the vast majority of, and so this is actually comparing our data from 2018 to 2019. The projects used to be 1 year to 2 years, and quite a few of the AI projects were up here in the more than 2 years. Like these are the real moonshot trying to solve world peace basically. And you can see it's very much moving down to the 6 months to 1 year phase in terms of the length of the projects that are going on within businesses. So I hope that gives you a bit of an idea of the state of play of AI. It's very, it's quite immature in a lot of businesses. Where businesses are doing it, they are looking for the quick wins more so today than the bigger initiatives that they were going after previously. So starting off with the predictions, the first one is that analytics is going to return to the top of the IT priority list. Now, I'll make it clear, analytics will return to the top of the IT priority list, not the technology priority list. Now, a lot of you have probably worked with IT teams, a lot about IT teams, maybe came from an IT itself, and you've gone through the changes in businesses, and we're seeing it happen at the moment in Singapore in particular, and across ASEAN, where the IT team is being redistributed out into the business. Software developers are being pushed out into the different teams. The ownership of applications is being pushed out into the different teams. And many IT departments are going through a bit of an existential crisis. They're trying to work out, why are we here? Why do we exist? There are a lot of IT departments that aren't really that much more than a sort of core data team, a core support team, end user computing, and maybe a bit around the data center and network. But if you look at everything else, the applications and most of the data centers all being driven to the cloud, to SaaS, and out into the business teams. So that means IT teams have gone, well, what can we do to help the business, right? So the business is trying to be agile, they're trying to be fast, they're moving towards digital businesses. Analytics is really hard. As I mentioned this idea that we're pushing our applications out to the teams that use them. CRM is going out to sales, ERP is going out to finance, manufacturing, etc. So when you want to do really good analytics and you sit within that team, you only have access to the data in that team. And the reality is you want data from many different sources to do great analytics. And this is where IT has suddenly realised that actually this is our role, our way back in, right? This is what we're going to be doing. This is how we can really help the business be fast and innovative and agile, and help them become a digital business. And so we've actually asked a lot of CIOs, what is your number one priority and how you're going to help the business become digital? And most of the time they're saying we're going to be driving great analytics capabilities. We're going to help them make better decisions faster. And this is why. They get better decision making, improve their competitive advantage, reduce their cost of operations, enhance their internal processes, process monitoring and alerts, workforce optimization, et cetera, et cetera. There are many reasons why analytics is coming back to that top of the priority list. Analytics has always been up there in that top 5, but the last time something like analytics was top of the list was about 5, 6, 7 years ago when it was called BI, right? And it was a big centralized function. Now, we all moved away from BI and we went to the a self-use style BI. And now we realize that actually we need to make our application smart, we need to make our processes smart, and this is where analytics is coming into the play again. So the next prediction is that the spend that we're making around automation, I'll just check, is anyone not familiar with robotic process automation? RPA, a show of hands. You're not familiar, a few people aren't familiar. Very quickly, robotic process automation is dumb automation in a business. It's when you have a process that you go, we've got a human who copies this information from this field and that field, and then they copy it to that application, and then they hit that button, and then they hit that button. Let's just write a macro to do that. So RPA really is not that much more than macros. It's taking a dumb human process and automating that process. What we're seeing, though, is the organizations that have gone a long way down the automation route are starting to go, so I hit this button and this process runs and it does the same thing every time. What if I don't want it to do the same thing every time? What if I want it to learn? What if I want it to drive a different outcome based on the situation? And so this is where they're going, okay, let's make this dumb automation smart. So we're seeing organizations that have made these big investments, deep investments in RPA, are the ones who are also investing in other technologies, like other AI technologies, like sensor analytics, machine learning, NLP, smart process automation, image analytics, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, we are seeing that. What's the word? The gateway drug. RPA is sort of the gateway drug to the rest of AI. If you're in the AI space in your own business, I'd be looking for organisations that have strong automation capabilities, and they're the ones who are much more likely to be considering purchasing intelligent capabilities today versus those who haven't yet moved that far down the automation path. So the next stage, I think this is the one that's probably going to have the biggest impact in 2020, is that our applications are going to get smart, right? You think of the applications that we use, the ones that you guys might be building, the ones that our ERPs, our CRMs, etc. You think of a traditional sale, right? A customer calls up, and a salesperson, someone in a call center, takes the call and they say, it's this customer. They do a customer lookup, drop down, find the customer. Okay, what would you like to order? They say this product, and so they search through the list, find that product. And then they go, okay, we have to order that product from a supplier. Let's find the suppliers. Let's get their address. What's the quantity that you want? What size do you want? Et cetera, right? All these different things that you go through. And that's because applications are dumb, right? I actually have an example from my own life. I do quite a lot of DIY stuff. I like building fences in particular. Bunnings is a big hardware chain in Australia. And I'm at my local Bunnings relatively regularly, or making special orders over the phone, and I'm ordering pretty much the same thing every time, and it takes 15 or 20 minutes to get through that process. I'm going, so it's me, you know what I'm going to get to, you know what the endpoint is. How about we just jump to that endpoint, right? And that's what's happening in applications today, right? So I've got an example here from a specific ERP vendor, where they've already actually started to make their application smart, right? So the customer rings up, you select the customer, And so what it does, it just automates all the fields. We know that this customer orders this many of that product. Most of the time they get it from that supplier who delivers it from this address, and they deliver it to that address. And literally it goes from a 20, I think I've worked out in this particular application, I think it says goes from a 20 clicks to actually do the order down to 2 fields. Now, it doesn't work 100% of the time, because every now and then I'll ring Bunnings and I'll order something different, right? But the point is 80% of the time it does take a huge amount of time and effort out of the process. And when you're looking at AI spend, traditionally most AI spend has been focused on customer initiatives. The big growth is on internal. It's about saving money, saving time, saving effort, and actually trying to reduce the human cost of processes. So I believe we're already seeing it. Applications getting smarter. And so what's changed here though is that SAP and Oracle and all the other big vendors, they used to ship their application and then they'd ship an AI capability. And they'd say, you can make it smart. Just hire some data scientists and develop some algorithms and integrate it and then change your processes, et cetera, et cetera. What's changing in end of 2019, 2020, like this Ramco application, is the applications are smart out of the box. You don't need to hire data scientists anymore to do intelligent things within your business. And that is a massive barrier to AI in business. There aren't enough data scientists. It's that simple. You look at how many Singapore's churning out, how many Australia, Malaysia, et cetera. We're not churning out enough data scientists to do all the AI things that we need to do. AI has to get easier. There has to be a democratization of AI. And that's another prediction that we have. I think this is more towards the end of 2020. We're going to see the cloud vendors in particular make their AI tools much more accessible, where you no longer need a data scientist to develop a new algorithm. I honestly believe that by the end of 2020, we're going to get to the point where a business user can create an algorithm for their business. The system will ask for what data, what you're trying to achieve with that data. It will do the learning itself. There might be some, I know some of the big cloud vendors actually have a human service you can hire where they'll actually throw in some learnings there too. It will do the learning and then deliver an algorithm to you. And I think the applications, as I said already, will get smarter so they can automatically integrate that algorithm into the process to make that process different. Because that's what's ultimately about. AI is driving something different, right? So there has to be a change in a process somewhere. It's not just about developing a great algorithm and continuing development. So I do believe that AI is going to be heavily democratized in 2020. It's going to be much easier for your own organization and your developers to integrate AI into your tools, and for your customers to make their applications smarter. And the final prediction is around the edge. Now, this is one that I think is a bit of a nascent trend in 2020. And that's because most organizations don't really have an edge or don't understand their edge, perhaps is what's going on. And 5G is going to be one of the biggest drivers of this. So why 5G? Well, most IoT applications today are one way, right? It is a sensor that senses something, it gets data, and it sends that data off, right? That's basically what an IoT sensor does today. What 5G enables, both in the speed of the network to be able to do it quickly, the architecture of the network, the security of the network, and the applications on the network, is two-way IoT. And so most global operators are talking about launching two-way IoT with 5G, right? So what two-way IoT is? A sensor that senses and then does something, right? So, there's someone walking across the road, I'll let a siren off to make sure no one runs them over or whatever, right? It's a sensor that, does something based off what it's sensing. So, the thing is, this requires different architectures. It's an interesting one because most organisations are not definitely in Singapore, not as much in the rest of ASEAN, but most of them are embracing hybrid cloud and public cloud today. They're effectively moving away from this idea of owning their own hardware. But we believe going forward that 25% of the cloud and 25% of the computing in a business, in an average business, and this isn't just manufacturers, this is any sort of business, will actually be at the edge, right? So how does this work in an AWS world or an Azure world when all the computing is sitting in either here in Singapore or even AWS in Singapore doesn't host all of its services in Singapore. Many of them, you're actually calling back to services back into the US. And if latency is a problem, if this is a public safety, if this is a driverless car situation, you don't have the luxury of the ping time back to the Singapore data center, back to the US data center, and back again to be able to do the learning, the analytics, and make the decision and act. The decision needs to be made on the edge. We actually need computing at the edge is what's going to change, and we're going to need learning at the edge because again, we don't, there are a few two-way IoT things today that is very much this happens then do this happens then do this, and what organizations have implemented this are doing is that they are constantly having to update the algorithm because they're getting new data and they actually don't want the same thing to happen every time. The situation changes slightly over time. So therefore, we're going to need machine learning and artificial intelligence at the edge, which requires new computing architectures to be able to deliver that. What's interesting, however, is that while we understand things like AI and edge computing, and what this graph shows is we ask people, how much do you understand these different technologies? And the red is that they fully understand, and the black is saying they have no concept of it. So yes, nearly 30% of organizations saying they fully understand edge computing. Artificial intelligence is up there closer to 50% is saying they fully understand the opportunities there. Edge analytics, we've got 30% of organizations saying they have no concept of what it is, right? So this is why I think this is one of those nascent predictions that we are going to want to drive capabilities at the edge. We're going to need analytics at the edge. We don't really know what that means today. Many of us don't understand that. So I think we're all going to play a really important role in educating the market on what smart analytics is, on what real-time data at the edge looks like and feels like, and what the capabilities you'll need to be able to deliver that. Because as I said, edge computing breaks all of our current technology architectures. We had the all in our own data center architecture. Well, that doesn't work with edge computing. Now we're moving to our own data center in the cloud or just the public cloud. Again, for most of the cloud, I know Alibaba actually has AliCloud has their own sort of edge computing device that they actually sell as part of their cloud platform, but most of the other vendors aren't there yet when it comes to that. So it requires a new type of hardware, a new type of capability, a new way of doing learning and machine learning on these new devices that are going to sit at the edge of our network. And that network might not actually be our network. It might be a telco's network. And this is it. This is one of the real enablers why I think 5G will drive this faster, is that 5G gives you the architecture and the virtualization of the networks, etc., for you to actually be able to rent a capability in their network to have your computing sit in their network right on the edge, as close to the customer as possible. What's interesting is how the conversation with technology is starting to change. So if you are in clients and you're selling technology solution, what you'll start to see is this old conversation of, okay, we want this application and we start developing it, and then in that development process we decide on how we host that application. Now we're starting with, what are we trying to achieve with that application before we even start to develop the service in our business? Because what we're trying to achieve will dictate the architecture that we need to use. If we need real-time analytics on the edge, it probably can't be in the public cloud, and it can't be sitting within our own data center. We're going to need that somehow in the edge, and that might be our edge or it might be some public edge capability. So as I said, the conversation's really starting to change around how we're making decisions and how your clients and other technologists are making decisions. They're starting with the question of how we're going to help, what's the purpose of this application? And it's going to dictate many of the other pieces that come after that. Um, I'll skip over that one. Sorry, I thought I removed it. So, I'm just wanting to recap the predictions. Basically, analytics is going to be a top IT priority. There is going to be significant amount of spend on analytics platforms. Where much of AI is today actually is in the data. It's not in the applications. You see that in all the large vendors. All the large vendors have backed off the capabilities of AI, and they're all focusing on making sure they have the data and the capabilities to be able to deliver, to be able to do better learning. Interestingly, AWS just launched a new service in their marketplace where anyone can sell data to any other organisation. Now, why that's important is that most organisations find out pretty quickly when they go down the machine learning route is that they don't actually have all the data that they want. Actually, some of the data that they want is someone else's data. It might be Facebook's data, Google's data, etc. So they're out there trying to actually, organisations can now sell you that data. It's being enabled in cloud marketplaces like the AWS marketplace, and you can integrate that data straight into your machine learning tool. You don't have to particularly go out and find every particular data point that you need to drive better learnings. Automation, is the gateway drug to AI. Any organisation that you see doing automation, they will be doing smart things soon. AI is going to be everywhere, really. That's a really big learning. If you're developing an application yourself, you need to make it smart. It's that simple, right? It is an expectation that the applications will be smart out of the box. AI will be democratized. It's going to be much easier for us all to access AI. Both developers, as I said, I think 2020 will be the year that it actually AI gets beyond the developer, where we don't need an IT person involved anymore to be able to do something smart within a business. And AI is going to be required on the edge. And as I hope I've demonstrated, the edge requires whole new architectures, whole new ways to make decisions within businesses, which, as I said, which is why I think that's a nascent one. I think it's going to delay many of the decisions and changes that are going on.